On this week's Eastern Conference Roundup edition of Locked On NHL, the Eastern Conference Final has become a best of three after the Florida Panthers' overtime win in Game 4. We'll get into that series. Plus, Frank Saravalli of Daily Faceoff has put out his first trade bait board of the offseason, and guys from each of our teams are in the top three. We'll get into all that and more on this week's Eastern Conference edition of the Locked On NHL podcast. Your team every day.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to another edition of Locked On NHL, your team every day. I'm Ross Levitan. You can find me at Locked On Senators. That's Mike DiStefano from Locked On Maple Leafs. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use our promo code Locked On NHL for $20 off your first ticketing purchase. Terms apply. That's code Locked On NHL for $20 off your first purchase at Game Time. Today is Wednesday, May 29th, and Mikey, should that have been a penalty shot in overtime?
I don't know if it should have been a penalty shot. Are you team penalty shot on that one? You thought it should have been?
If I'm a Rangers fan, I saw our guy John Chick with Locked On Rangers. He would have preferred a penalty shot, and I think that's the right call if you're a Rangers fan.
Well, probably. I mean, I think everybody would prefer the penalty shot, but I don't know. Dude, I don't know what officiating is anymore. Like, I don't know what the standard ever is. Like, there's some plays where you look at it, you're like, okay, it's definitely a penalty shot. Looks like he's got a breakaway, and then it's just called a hook and call or a tripper or whatever. And there's other plays where it's like, that's, you could make an argument they were kind of in lockstep with each other, and it's like, penalty shot. So I don't know. Do you really want to end a playoff game via a penalty shot, though? I don't know if that's going through the mind of the officials, but that would be a crummy way to end a game. Although the power play ended it anyways. But
could someone leave a comment below if it's ever happened before? Has a playoff game ever ended in an overtime penalty shot? That's awesome.
That's a good question. Good question.
That's awesome question. It'd be so at home too. Like, that's amazing. But Florida's power play, I mean, same with the Rangers. The power plays for the teams that are all remaining, it seems, are elite. And obviously goaltending power play, you win those, or you're top 5 in those, you're going to have a good team. But having 2 minutes of power play, and who else but Sam Reinhart, guy's been scoring on the power play for a number of years, but specifically the last 2 years with Florida, no brainer that he gets the winner.
Well, 100%. Like, they're the regular season. I think he had like 30-something power play goals. Like, half of his goals were scored on the power play, more than half, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, of course, he's the one to kind of come through for the Florida Panthers. And look, I think Florida deserved to win that game. And this series kind of deserves to be tied up at this point. I think it's been a tremendous series. Like, coming into it, we knew that it was going to be one that possibly had a chance to go 6, 7 games. And both of these two squads pretty evenly matched, and we've gotten some really good hockey. So, I'm good with it. I'm good with it being 2-2 right now, as opposed to a 3-1 and a chance for only a 5-game series. I want this thing to go 7. I'm really enjoying the hockey.
Yeah, so am I. It's been awesome hockey, both the East and Western Conference Finals.
And what I've really enjoyed is the glow up here from Alexis Lafreniere. Like, I think finally everyone's realizing, like, okay, maybe this kid was worth the hype. Like, if you look at what he's done in these playoffs, like, he's been unbelievable. And the hand-eye last night on that goal, like a nice little backhand feed, but just to like get a little slice on it, almost like a tennis drop shot, to make sure that he gets a piece of it and allows it to go in it. Like, it's just smart. It's hockey smarts. It's good hand-eye, and it's he's turning into a star before our very eyes. I think people maybe wrote him off a little too early, but the kid's 21 years old, 21, 22.
22. He'll be 23 by start of next season.
But his trajectory is just going up, man. Like, 28 goals in the regular season. He's got 7 or 8 goals here in the playoffs now, and he's arrived. Lafreniere has arrived, and he is a top-tier talent in this league. And I think this playoffs has been a nice little coming-out party for the rest of the NHL world to notice.
13 points in 14 games and 3 goals in his
There you
last
go.
2. And I even think his second, because the hand eye was definitely number 1. But another impressive play, that toe drag that he pulled at the blue line last night with speed, just left him in his dust, just missed the rip, top shelf.
Confidence. Two things. Confidence is massive everywhere. Like it's almost like a buzzword, a cliche word that people use, but it's true. When players are playing with high confidence, you could tell, and they often are their most productive. But also, like, he's actually playing. Like, the dude's averaging 20 minutes a night instead of the 14 minutes a night he was getting under Gerard Gallant. So he's getting the opportunities, which is giving him confidence, and he's rewarding the Rangers with some production.
Well, on the opposite end of that spectrum, when you're talking about confidence, Mika Zibanejad's got none of it right now. He's -3 with no points through 4 games in the Eastern Conference Final. What a pizza. That's just, you can't make a play to the middle of the ice to a guy who's
Locked
not
on 10.
expecting it. Well, not only that, but Blake Wheeler's playing his first game in like 5 months. That's the guy
Yeah.
you're like, you have to be aware that if he even fumbles the puck, it's gone. Gone the other way.
Yeah, he's somebody who definitely is struggling a little bit right now, and I think it goes right to the opposite where he has a lack of confidence at this point, maybe trying a little too hard to make a play for his team, and unfortunately, it's sometimes when you think too much, you're not just playing freely because you're in your own head. You make those silly mistakes. I mean, trust me, there's a lot of blunders like that happen all over the Maple Leafs playoff roster here. They're consistently making those bad turnovers, which is costly for the team. And yeah, like, the fact that the Rangers are currently tied right now, and you're not really getting a whole lot out of Panarin, you're not getting a whole lot out of Zibanejad. Kreider, I think, has one goal in this series. Like, he hasn't really been able to fill the net either. The fact that it's 2-2,
No goal. No points in this series for Kreider.
for Kreider either. There you go. So, like, both Kreider and Zibanejad have been silent. Panarin hasn't really been all that effective. Trocheck got a goal last night, but like, he hasn't necessarily
You see
been
the
a
angle
star.
from behind? It was like the angle that Shesterkin would have seen it from the other side, and
Mm,
my goodness, it was on his stick, off his stick in a hurry.
I know. So quick. So quick. He's a hell of a player. That
Yeah.
Vinny Trocheck.
But I mean, this
Um,
series isn't 2-2 without Igor Shesterkin. I mean, 10 goals on 130 shots, a .923 save percentage. He's been all that and more.
Oh, I mean, both goalies. Like, you look at the entire playoffs. Like, this is where goalies are really making their mark. And
Hey,
I
verbal
think
meme,
the league.
those 3 soldiers, when then the 4th soldier's wearing the clown shoes and everything. Stuart Skinner's probably over there on the far right. But Ottinger, Shesterkin, and Bobrovsky have all been unbelievable.
They've been fantastic. Like, they've been unreal, and arguably the MVPs of their team. Like, you can look at the Conn Smythe, and I don't know what the odds are currently on FanDuel, but I mean, you can make the argument that it should probably be like Shesterkin, Ottinger, and Bobrovsky 1, 2, 3 at this point, because they truly have been the backbone of their teams most nights, and they've been massive for their squad. So I don't know. We're having this conversation on Locked On Leafs right now about how I wonder if you look at the goaltending and what you're seeing this season, this postseason, and how good goaltending can really, really put you in a good spot come playoff time. Are we going to see that kind of transition back to focusing on building from the net out? And maybe we don't necessarily see that tandem anymore that the league's been going that way for the last couple of years. I would say the last 4 or 5 years, you've seen a lot of tandems get built. Now you're seeing, okay, but when you have a star number one, this is what's possible. And I wonder if other teams out there are going to try and do that. The problem is there is only a few goalies who are capable of that, but the ones that are out there this summer, and we'll get to the trade bait board in a little bit from Frank Saravalli, but like Saros and Markstrom are 2 of those dudes who can be bona fide number ones. If your team's out there looking for a goaltender, I would look at what's happening in the playoffs right now and make that a priority and try and get one of those 2 this offseason.
And don't forget the guy who comes in at number 2 on the trade bait board, Linus Ullmark, right there as well. Obviously, he's been splitting the net with Jeremy Swayman, but he's a guy who, I mean, Vezina winner, not this year, but last, reigning, because they haven't named Connor Hellebuck the Vezina winner just yet. But it's been an unbelievable kind of, and look, it's a copycat league. It always has been. You see teams building off size on the back end after Vegas won last year, and now could goaltending be the answer? Not goaltending. It's always been important, obviously. But when it comes to one guy carrying the mail for a majority of the games this season, yeah, that's a great conversation to go back to. But it's also a league of overreactions, and we'll get to some overreactions of this Eastern Conference final next. And I've got the cons to my thoughts, so I'll bring that up. You're listening to Locked On NHL, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Go check out the Game Time app for last-minute tickets at the lowest prices, guaranteed. Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets, whether it's NBA, NHL, the NHL draft at the Sphere. I'll be there. It's going to be a blast. They've got these specific events, and how about a view from your seat? You don't want to be there and have an obstructed view. You want to know when you get to your seat exactly what's up. And the prices on the Game Time app actually go down the closer it gets to game time. So not only is the app simple, safe, secure, easy to use, you can buy tickets in literally 2 taps. Tap, tap, boom, you got tickets. But they also have flash deals, zone deals, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, and more. So go get the all-in pricing on Game Time. That's the worst. When you buy tickets and then they add on a percentage after, no thanks. I want it all right up front at Game Time. Nothing hidden, all on the table at Game Time. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL. LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices, guaranteed. Welcome back, Locked On NHL, your team every day. A reminder, you can like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We are free and available on YouTube. Go check out Locked On New York Rangers. I have a feeling John Chick is going to be up in his feelings today, and rightfully so. That's a heartbreaking loss after being able to come back the way they did, tie the game, go to overtime. I felt like they had the momentum going into overtime, but it can change in an instant. What's been your overarching takeaway from this 4 games? I mean, back to back to back overtime games, you can't get much closer as a series.
No, I mean, this has been a terrific series to watch. And I mean, we kind of touched on, I guess, like my overall takeaway is like goaltending wins in the playoffs. You know, like which goalie can make that one extra save, and that seems to have been the difference between these two, quite literally, who can make that extra save in overtime that the other goaltender on the other side of the ice can't make. But you know, ultimately, I really do think that we're seeing, you know, what depth can do also just in terms of like a roster building standpoint, because, you know, we touched on it. The New York Rangers haven't necessarily seen their big boys produce massively, but they're getting other guys to step up. And it's players who, you know, are capable of scoring, guys who aren't just random dudes they throw in there. Like, yeah, of course they have like a, you know, Matt Rentby on their squad, right, but like they're getting some offense from some other guys as well. Like Laffy's been a big time, you know, upcoming for him, obviously, but you're getting some offense from guys like Barclay Goodrow as well, who's had a, you know, a big time goal in this series. So I think that you know, what you're seeing is depth playing a massive factor. Goaltending and depth, 2 big key factors here in this series when you're looking at it from a Rangers perspective.
And when you're looking at it from the Panthers perspective, 5 power play goals in the series. The Rangers only have 1. I mean, that's a huge difference right here. So if you're the Rangers, you're coming home for game 5. You need that power play to be clicking on all cylinders. They get a couple. I think they bring this back for game 6 and being ahead, going back down to Florida, where it's a tough barn to win. Those Panthers fans have really come alive, and our Armando Velez, Locked On Florida Panthers, has really been all over that series. So make sure you're watching and listening to Armando and all the great storylines. We knew coming in, we said it last week on the show, this was the best and the second best team in the Eastern Conference, and we're about to find out who's who, because they were separated by 1 or 2 points throughout the regular season. It's lived up to the hype and more.
Yeah, I can't wait for it. It's definitely going to be a great kind of final stretch here between these two teams. It's the best of 3 now, right? Best of 3. Who can come out? Who can win twice? Just got to win 2 more games and book yourself a spot into the Stanley Cup final.
And our friends at FanDuel have the Florida Panthers at minus 144, which I find a little interesting because the Rangers have home ice advantage. It just shows the confidence.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, I mean, I would
like
say
the Rangers plus 120 for the Rangers.
I would say the Panthers have outplayed the Rangers like in these playoffs. Like generally, should it be tied? And maybe the Panthers could be up 3-1. You can make that argument. So I guess if you're looking at it based on like the expected market, yeah, the Panthers look like they've been the better team, I suppose. But I don't know, man. I wouldn't sleep on the Rangers. Like Igor Shesterkin is absolutely on one right now, playing the best hockey of his career, I think, and he can steal you games. So I wouldn't be betting against the Rangers. Am I willing to bet with the Rangers? I'm not sure. I might be willing to kind of sit this one out, but I definitely wouldn't be betting against them.
Well, Igor Shesterkin is the second best Conn Smythe odds at plus 550. Number 1 right now is Jake Ottinger and the Dallas Stars.
Makes sense.
Alex Barkov is third at plus 750. Bobrovsky's in 7th right now, plus 1,200.
How many points does Barkov have?
Sasha Barkov this postseason? Well, I can tell you in this series, he's got 4. He's got a goal and 3 assists in this series. And as I pull it up here, in the entire playoffs, he's got 17 points in 15 games, 6 goals.
Not bad.
Not bad. I honestly like Matthew Tkachuk's got 19 points, and I feel like he's been in the mix, maybe even a little bit more. But Sasha Barkov's a great player. It's hard to argue if that's the call.
Well, the two-way talent, right? Like, I think that's also what you're kind of looking at, the fact that he's been able defensively to like shut down, dudes not only that were with the Florida, with Tampa, but now you're looking at, shutting down the Zibanejads and the Panarins and the Kreiders of the world too, right? So I think that, that two-way play gives him a little bit of love here. So I guess I'm not that surprised that he's kind of the third guy on the totem pole, but
20 takeaways is ridiculous.
That is ridiculous. In 15
he leads
games?
the team by 7 in 15 games. Yeah.
That's quite good. Quite good,
yeah.
I would say. Yeah.
Very good player.
Perennial Selke. He won the Selke this year, actually, didn't he?
Yeah, he did.
Did we talk about this? Why the hell are they unveiling
no clue
awards like
actually I do know
NBA style?
The awards have actually always been in Vegas. I was going to say because the awards and draft are all in Vegas, they just want to get it over with and hit the strip. But I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I wish I did. You know what? You know what I like more than the awards? I like it when they unveil the ballots in the summer, and I get to go through and see which people are just like when people? when Nick Bonino gets a 1 second vote for a Selke, and you're like, who was that? And you do Control F and you search the player who had an egregious vote, and I go, I'm going to look at all your ballots. And usually they're all ridiculous. It's always the same guys. Not to call out Seth Rohraberg in Pittsburgh, but I'm going to call that guy out. He's an absolute menace with the awards. They should steal this guy's vote. This guy, Luke Glendening, he didn't even have Patrice Bergeron on his ballot for the Selke 3 years ago. And he had Luke Glendening, who was a minus 30 and had 4 points.
That same year, I believe he held Matthews off of his Hart ballot the year
He's
Matthews
unbelievable.
won. The guy won the Hart Trophy. He's not a top 5 consideration for you,
and same with Bergeron. This guy might have left every award winner off of his ballot. Like, is he trying?
We'll dive deep into the awards when all that is done. We still got
Seth, come on the show, dude. I need to have a chat with you. We need to talk.
But like, I don't like the way that they're unveiling this slowly, where it's like, okay, we're gonna do, like yesterday they announced what did they announce yesterday? Anders Lee won it, like the
humanitarian award. Yeah, the Clancy, I think, maybe.
Yeah, the King Clancy. Yeah, Anders Lee won it. So shout out, congrats to Anders Lee. That's a nice award. It's a good award to win. But it's like just randomly we're getting things that are just kind of coming out randomly. And then there's still going to be a award ceremony for, I guess, a couple of the big awards. But like, I think the GM, the Jim Gregory, is going to get announced next week. And like, we've already had Tokic got his Coach of the Year award. We had the Selke already announced. It's like, why? Why aren't we waiting until the award ceremony? Isn't that what it's for? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't get it. But anyway, random rant. I apologize.
Fun fact, King Clancy played for the Ottawa Senators and Toronto Maple Leafs between 1921 and 1937.
That's our guy. That's our guy.
That's our guy. Hey, he helped the Senators win Stanley Cup in 1923 and 1927. So I don't want to hear you say that the Senators don't have Stanley Cups because they got 11.
Yeah.
There were just 7 players. They were just 7 players on the team at the time. That's the only difference. Amazing. All right, let's talk to the fans of the teams who are outside the Eastern Conference Finals, watching from afar and already on Cap Friendly. They flipped the season over. I love that at Cap Friendly, where it's like, okay, you see your core for next year, and now you're playing around. All the free agents drop to the bottom, and you can kind of play around with that. And this is the perfect time for Frank Saravalli's trade bait board. Who's available? Where do the fits happen? We'll discuss next. You're listening to Locked On NHL, your team every day. Welcome back, Locked On NHL, your team every day. I'm Ross Levitan. That's Mike DiStefano. You are listening or watching on YouTube. We are free and available on your favorite podcast platform. Before we get to Frank Saravalli's trade bait board, we had some movement in the executive suites in the Eastern Conference. Don Waddell going from Carolina to Columbus, getting a pay increase there. And I thought that our friends Jay Forrester and our new buddy Zach over at Locked On Hurricanes, they did a crossover episode you guys can go check out. They did it today, so it is available for you right now. But I found that to be pretty interesting. Seems like this Eric Tolsty, he's the interim GM now for Carolina, but he's been a name bandied about, and it feels like he's the GM in waiting. So maybe this was Don Waddell. Obviously, he gets more, gets paid a little bit more there, but it felt like it had kind of run its course in Carolina. He did a heck of a job there, because when you thought Don Waddell, you thought Atlanta Thrashers, you're like, oh, it was a bit of a mess, but when he got back, man, he's really solidified his reputation as a smart hockey man.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at what this team was able to do. Like, this Carolina Hurricanes, they built it up, and like, when did he get there? He get there like what, mid 2000s is probably when he got, or mid 2010s, early 2010s. Like, he'd been there for quite some time, if I'm not mistaken, as the president and GM of the club. And he's been a terrific, general manager for them, building up that team into being perennial, cup contenders. They make the playoffs every single year. They've got Rod the Bod in play. I think the one thing that I guess people would probably look as a stain on his resume would be the whole offer sheet nonsense that he did with Kotkaniemi. But that
After
was
Aho?
No.
Well, it started with Aho. That was payback.
Yeah, that was the payback, and it egg on their face. And I still think that was more so the owner who said to do that than Don Waddell, to be honest with you. But
definitely agree.
Regardless, I don't know. It kind of did surprise me, though. Like, things are going well in Carolina. They brought back Rob Brindamore. Like, it's a team that is locked and loaded. Not only do they have, their core under contract for, some term here. They've got a good runway. They've got a good window. They've got some young prospects coming too. They've always had a great draft and develop system. It just surprised me a little bit that Don Waddell was willing to jump ship. Money will make people do things and move around from job to job, and it sounds like maybe that's what it was. Just a difference in value.
Not only that, too, he's going to be the president of hockey operations there too. I know he was the president. He was the president, but as you mentioned, I think it's a bit of a meddling situation with the ownership in Carolina. Which, hey, they own the team; they can have say if they want, right? Like, I'm not one of those guys who's like, "Oh, the owner's getting involved." Well, if you own something for $1 billion, like, if you're rich, you want to have a bit of a say.
Yeah. I mean, technically, he was. I think on paper he was president of hockey ops, but
it just says president on his elite prospects, and he joined Carolina only as their president, and then gave himself 5 years later he became the GM.
Yeah.
Who was it beforehand?
So
it was Jim Rutherford. wasn't it? Before
Yeah.
Pittsburgh?
Jimmy Rutherford was there for a while. Yeah. Ron Francis was there for some time, wasn't he?
It might have been Ron Francis.
Yeah. So I think Jimmy Rutherford was the GM, and I think Ron Francis was the president.
Ron Francis was GM beforehand, right before Don Waddell. And it was Jim Rutherford right before. Why is there a... Oh, okay, yeah.
And then Ronnie Francis went to Seattle.
Okay, this is kind of strange. Okay, I'm getting way off topic. We got to get to our trade bait board. But the reason I was taken aback is on Wikipedia, I typed in Hurricanes GM, and there's a cross next to Jim Rutherford's name. Doesn't that mean that they're dead? Typically, and then in the legend, it says elected into the Hall of Fame. Like if somebody's passed away on elite prospects, there's a cross instead of where their age is.
Oh,
so I saw that. I was like, what? I was like,
well, Jimmy Rutherford's alive.
He's one of the best guys going. Jimmy Rutherford's one of the best guys going.
I was great just taken aback. In Vancouver. Like,
I was just in shock.
That's
Jesus.
Yeah, I don't know what that's all about.
No, Jimmy Rutherford, hey, goalie, dude. Go look at Jimmy. Type in Jim Rutherford goalie when you get a sec. One of the best setups of all time. 5'8", 160 pounds, just kicking him out with the big mustache. He was in the 70s with the Detroit Red Wings, was his heyday, but great gear and an awesome hockey man. He's done great things too in Vancouver.
I'll say this. I like the move from a Columbus perspective, though, to kind of put a little bow on the Don Waddell conversation. Like, he's proven that he can build a small market team and he can put the right people in place. Obviously, last year, the fiasco that was with the Mike Babcock situation ended up kind of costing a few people their jobs. Don Waddell, he gets a chance to kind of go in with a clean slate and try and build up that team. They've got some good prospects. They've got some good talent. If you got someone at the head of the snake who knows what they're doing, I think Columbus can get going in the right direction. So I do like that pickup from a Columbus perspective.
Yeah, and they've got a great prospect pool to work with. So we'll see what happens next. Again, for more on that, go check out Locked On Hurricanes and Locked On Blue Jackets. Okay, wrapping up the show, and this is something that we can discuss in more detail on each of our own shows, Locked On Maple Leafs, and I'm at Locked On Senators, and that is the Frank Saravelli trade bait board, where Mitch Marner, with 1 year remaining, a $10.9 million AAV, and a full no-move clause, comes in at number one. What were your thoughts when you saw that?
I mean, I'm not surprised at all. I mean, Saravelli has been one of the insiders that's been pretty. He's been tooting the trade Mitch Marner horn for quite some time. I know on the DFO podcast, he was, coming out and saying like it's not as hard to get a guy to move on from the no move clause. Like they don't have as much say as you think. Like you can make things hard on them and squeeze them out. Essentially, it's like you can do that. I don't think the Maple Leafs are going to do that. They have not shown a history of being willing to do that. They're not the Vegas Golden Knights here. It's not a winning operation here in Toronto.
They'll just put you on an island over with Robida, Lupul, Muzzin, anybody else.
Yeah, but those are with dudes who aren't playing, and that's for cap situations. That was star players who you could actually, you just
bring back
asset management. So I'm not surprised that he comes up at number one on Frank Saravelli's. I'm not sure he would be number one on some other trade bait boards, but from a Maple Leafs perspective, from someone who covers the team on a day-to-day basis at Locked On Leafs, obviously he's the big name that we're talking about for the team that wants to make changes this offseason. They already swapped out the coach. In comes Craig Berube. Is that enough? I personally don't believe so. I think they still need to make a change on the ice, and everything seems to be pointing at Mitch Marner. So it's not a surprise to me. There obviously is some clear hurdles that the Leafs would have to overcome to make a move and make a trade of that magnitude. But I think there's definitely a chance that Mitch Marner has played his last game as a Maple Leaf.
At number two, Linus Ullmark, who was nearly traded to the LA Kings at the deadline. He did not waive his no-move clause. The Senators really want Linus Ullmark, it seems like, as well. But what are they willing to part with? Does Chychrun make sense for Boston? Probably not. So I don't know if the Sens have the assets to pull that off. I think LA would be a great fit for Linus Ullmark. They were a goalie away from being a real tough out. I know it got easier year over year for the Oilers to knock him out 7, then 6, then 5 this year. But I think Linus Ullmark going to LA, and they've got some pieces where I think Boston would be pretty interested in.
Yeah, I almost think if they didn't make that trade for Dubois last year, like Velarde would probably have been a really good trade piece. Now they might have to move like a Quentin Byfield. Like, is that the ask?
No,
Is that the ask?
no,
Well, what's
too
the ask?
much, too much.
Well, what's the ask on a Vezina winning number one goaltender? Like we just talked about how important goaltending is. I mean, these guys are valued, they're coveted. Like supply and demand. You can like it's not easy to find a Quentin Byfield, obviously, but it's a lot easier to
No, you're
find,
right.
a top six producer than it is to find a number one goaltender. So I mean, like I said, here in Toronto,
Here's one for you.
We're discussing Marner for Soros. Like I think that's so
I've got one for
Byfield
you.
for Allmark. It's not
No,
terrible.
I think this actually okay, look, I know he's on the other side of 30, and I think you're going to have to throw in a few picks to equal out the value, but Boston doesn't want to rebuild. Boston wants now. Philip Deneau would be a perfect fit in the middle six for the Boston Bruins. Philip Deneau would be a real nice addition for the Boston Bruins. And then if you're LA, you're like, now I can go Kopitar Byfield. We've kind of had that buffer period. Maybe there's something there.
Yeah, okay. I could listen in on that for sure. I mean,
47 points last year, obviously defensive responsible. It feels like he would be kind of like a poor man's Bergeron, like a Krejci type. Yeah, like so keep an eye on that. At number 3, it's Jacob Chychrun, and I stopped reading after the first sentence because he does a little write up for all these players. He says Chychrun had an excellent season. Dude, he was dash 30. He was dash 30. And
plus minus means nothing. Plus minus
buddy,
means
if you watch him, it's even worse. This guy was looking for pennies after every whistle. Didn't want to engage physically with anybody. He's got a sick shot, and he has potential. He's got all the tools. I just think the toolbox sometimes he doesn't know how to open it. It's a bit frustrating.
Played the full 82 though. That was big.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I retweeted it. I said CC all 31 teams, no notes. This is exactly correct. He had an excellent season, and everybody should pay top dollar to get him.
A couple other players that surprised me on this, not surprised me on this list, but have surprised me that their name has been in conversation. Out in Minnesota, there's been discourse. I saw a report not too long ago that Philip Gustafsson, who comes in at number 8 on this list, and also apparently Marco Rossi might be available for like I know it's on the West Coast, but there's got to be teams out here in the East. Like you're looking at.
You say Minnesota's the West Coast?
Western Conference team. Relax yourself.
You can't get further than the coast.
No, but I that's another name, right? Philip Gustafsson. We're talking about goal upgrades in net.
Ottawa could use a guy like that.
You took the joke. You ruined it. You took my joke. How great
is Joey DeCourt around?
How great would Gustafsson look like in a Senator's uniform?
Let me get on the Photoshop right now. Hey, let me get on the Photoshop. I'll find it.
Like I said, or Joey Dack,
Dax would be a great get. Maybe Magnus Hellberg. What's he up to? Marcus Hogberg's coming back to the NHL. What's Murray up to? Free agent, Matt Murray.
Yeah, hey, he's a pending UFA. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Jeez Louise. I think if I'm saying Ottawa, though, number 7 is coming to Ottawa. Arthur Kaliev played for Steve Stayosson Jr. I just see that as too easy of a play that it's going to be a buy low candidate pending RFA. Like give him a Ottawa's got 3 4th-round picks. Give him 2 4ths. Like I don't think do you think he's got any value? Like I just don't see what his value. It's 7 goals in 51 games.
Not much more than that, honestly. Like 3rd-round pick, I think is probably where he would top out at. Honestly, not much value.
So, interesting.
Sadly.
All right, go check out. Go ahead.
Just struggling prospect for struggling prospect would be kind of that. That deal.
You know who else I'm thinking is coming to Ottawa? Jean-Gabriel Pageau. Sens want vets. 2 years left on his deal.
Bring him back.
Reunion there.
Yeah,
I'd love it.
Showed up on old Frankie's list here.
He's number 9.
Back in. Yeah, Martin Akash from Carolina.
Oh,
did you hear about that,
dude,
by the way?
He had such a good world championship. With his dad wanting PP one time, he's pulling the old Mitchie Marner.
Yeah, well, there's that, but then on
that's all I heard.
Waddell, well, there is that, but Don Waddell on his way out kind of commenting on the comments, being like, yeah, we got dads out here making comments. It's
Dude,
like,
how
ooh.
awesome is that to say that and then leave? Right? Waddell's like, I don't have to negotiate that contract.
Right, exactly. So it's kind of funny. We'll see. He's a great player. Like,
Imagine
yeah,
he ends up in Columbus. That would be hilarious.
I doubt that would be the case, but we'll see. We'll
All
see.
right, go check out for more on Frank Saravalli's list over at Daily Faceoff. A lot of great work there from those fellas. For more on Locked On, go check out your favorite team and your least favorite team, and make sure to leave a nice comment. Have a great day, everyone. Thanks so much. We'll hand it over to Power Ranking Thursday. That's Mike DiStefano. I'm Ross Levitan. This has been the Locked On NHL podcast, your team every day.